Welcome to the first installment of La Bataille Considered. So what do I mean by considered? Well, this is not going to be a tutorial or an explanation of how to play the game necessarily. It's more like an investigation and examination of the different systems at play in this game, and how they interact and how they really tie together to form a really great playing game. Now the reason I'm doing this is I've been playing a lot of La Bataille, and I was actually going to take a little break because I want to get a combined second edition Ligny and Quatre Bras from Clash of Arms on the table. And I thought I should sort of take a break, clear my head of all the things I've already known about the game, and start fresh with the new Clash of Arms 5th edition rules. And it just got me to thinking about the history of the game, the evolution of it, and where it stands now. And I thought it just might be interesting to capture some of that thinking in some presentations. As most players know, there are an abundance of rule sets for this system, more rule sets than any game system could possibly ever need. Each of the iterations represents maybe an evolution or a change in perspective, but it can be confusing even for an experienced player, because often we've just sort of put the books into a blender in our brains and play some amalgam of many of the rules, often unsure which particular rule we're using or where it comes from. So with my plan to wipe the slate clean, start the game new, I decided I would use the 5th edition rule set from Clash of Arms. I started to consider that. I took into account this evolution of rules and the perspectives that were presented. And I thought that that might be interesting to sort of consider that alongside these new rules. So I've settled on the idea of comparing the premier rules from Martial Enterprises with the 5th edition rules from Clash of Arms. Now the reason I've chosen these is that those two groups are the commercial publishers of the titles, and these two rule sets represent their perspectives on the games. So I feel like these are the systems of records for the games we really enjoy playing. I've been playing the premier rules for quite a few years now, and the idea of switching to the 5th edition really kind of piques my interest. Not because I'm giving up on the premier, I still appreciate them as a rule set, but I'm eager to see how this different approach in the 5th edition is going to affect the game, affect the gameplay, and my own experience with the games. The presentation of the rule sets in the form of their rule books is really representative of the ethos of each of their perspectives. The premier rules are kind of a casual explanation by a bunch of dudes who know the game cold. But they're not like highly organized or especially well edited. But that's not meant to be a criticism. It just represents, I think, that style that they're going for. I might sum that up by saying that with the premier rules you discover the games through play rather than having them dictated to you through rules. On the other side, the Clash side, I think we see a rule book that maybe looks a little more like we expect from a commercial publisher. It's very well organized, well edited. There's good examples to explain things. There are plenty of places where it will repeat and hammer home a point when it thinks it needs to make a very clear statement. But that's not really meant as some sort of ringing endorsement. I just think it represents that perspective, maybe from the Clash side, which is while there's plenty to discover through play, there's far less opaque areas to trip you up. I have no intention of just staring at rulebook covers through these presentations, but what I want to do is to take us through a series of topics and illustrate those topics with game pieces, game aids, anything that I think will help us to understand them better. So the things I intend to cover will be starting with the fundamentals. We look at scale. Then we look at the most fundamental system in the game. Then we can move on from that into command and control ideas. Then some of the more mechanical aspects of the game, like movement, ranged fire combat, close-in combat, cavalry operations, which could take 10 presentations on their own. And then we'll try to pull it all together by looking at the sequences of play for each system and then playing through some game. I don't know if we can go through an entire scenario, but at least one or two turns using each system of rules to see how they really play on the table. Do I really need to put in a disclaimer? I'm just a guy talking. I'm not an authority. I play the games. I enjoy them as much as anyone, I think. But I'm not a designer. I have no ins with the inner circles. These are just my takes on it. And hopefully they don't offend anybody. I don't intend to. And I hope that people just sort of get a little something out of it, maybe stirs their own thinking on the subject and their own thinking on their own play. So I hope you'll join me for the presentations to come.